Phone calls leaked showing conversations between aldermen politicians in Chicago and the mayor show a foul-mouthed argument over looting. Quote, "You're 100% full of S," mayor says. Now, many of you may not be familiar with the politics of Chicago, but in the city, we have something called an alderman. They're basically like neighborhood mayors, I guess is the easy way to explain it. I'm not, we don't really care for the most part about, at least where I grew up, about who the alderman was. But they're like, they're local politicians for different neighborhoods. Well, following the worst violence we have seen in a really long time, 60 years, aldermen were calling the mayor, and they were on a conference call, complaining. Some were crying. And the mayor just starts cussing out one of these dudes when he was like, what am I supposed to do? People are apparently like commandeering buses. It was nuts in Chicago. Man, I tell you what, I am from this city, and I can only imagine the utter bedlam. Look at this photo. It's a bike flying through a window. What is this? The BBC says Chicago saw its deadliest day in 60 years last month, with 18 killings in a 24-hour period on May 31st. The violence occurred as protests over George Floyd's death in Minneapolis also spurred rioting and looting in the Windy City. And I love how they're like, the rioting worked, guys. Dude, 18 people died alongside these riots, 15 directly involved nationwide. So how many corpses did you have to climb over to get your ideological win? Congratulations, good sir. They say most of the victims were black. Thanks for including that, BBC, because I don't think anyone really cares. The dead and injured include students, parents, middle-aged workers, according to the data published by the Chicago Sun-Times. We've never seen anything like it at all. Senior research director Max Capiston told the newspaper, noting that the crime lab's data only goes back as far as 1961. I don't even know how to put it in context, he said. It's beyond anything we've ever seen before. Mr. Capiston added that protest over Mr. Floyd's death in police custody may have distracted Chicago police resources from normal police duties. When CPD has to turn its attention elsewhere and there's suddenly this vacuum that opens up, you also unfortunately see a picture like you saw with the last weekend where you have an absurd amount of carnage, people getting injured and killed. The second deadliest day in the city's history was August 4th, 1991, when 13 people were killed. Check out whatever this is, these guys wearing masks. Let me tell you something, man. It's the purge. Please keep advocating for defunding the police departments and see how fast these cities collapse. I am no fan of Chicago PD, man. I'm sorry. I hate to say it. I have family who, my dad was a firefighter, and I do not have good stories of what the Chicago PD are known for. Known to be very, very crooked. I'll tell you what, though, I've had good experiences and bad experiences. Most of my experiences with CPD have been bad. Some of them have been all right. I had a plainclothes cop save me from a mugging, like as it was happening, and I got a lot of respect for that. I've also had someone intentionally hit my vehicle, and the police did everything to help us out and take care of it. That's why I recognize, man, it's not so clear cut as to why or how things work. It's just people are people, Well, now you got all these activists that have hyper focused on this problem, and I do believe there are problems, but defunding, like abolishing police, is the extreme position that many of them are taking. It's insane. It's like you got a fly buzzing around. It's like imagine there's a fly in your room, and you're like, hey, there's a fly. It's annoying me. So then this activist comes out with a shotgun. He's like, boom, boom, trying to blast the fly, and you're like, dude, you're putting holes everywhere. That's what would happen if they abolish the police. Dude, we can deal with the fly. They have you fly swatter, you whack it. They've complained reform doesn't work. No, reform is the only thing that ever actually did work in this country. We reformed endlessly. Like every year we do reforms. Well, take a look at what happens when an alderman, Raymond Lopez, calls out the mayor. They say as looters were ransacking businesses throughout the city more than a week ago, Mayor Lori Lightfoot and Alderman Raymond Lopez, one of her harshest critics, engaged in an angry and foul-mouthed argument over the city's handling of the violence. During a conference call with all 50 aldermen on May 31st to discuss the city's response to the looting, Lopez accused the mayor of being unprepared when looting spread from downtown to the neighborhoods that weekend. Looters pillaged shops throughout the city as peaceful protesters were taking to the streets on the last weekend in May in memory of George Floyd. The mayor had convinced Governor J.B. Pritzker to deploy 375 members of the National Guard to support Chicago on May 31st, primarily by helping restrict access to the loot. A source provided CBS2 with an audio from a conference call the mayor held with the aldermen that day, in which Lopez said the mayor's office needed to come up with a better plan to protect the neighborhoods in the coming days. He said, "When downtown is in lockdown, our neighborhoods are next. And our failure to fully get ready for what was going on in the neighborhoods, we're seeing this destruction. And we're thinking that it's going to somehow end tonight. We have seen where in other cities. This has gone on for days. And we need to come up with a better plan for days, at least for the next 5 days, to try and stabilize our communities," Lopez said. "We can't expect our police, and I don't fault them at all, to be able to control this," he said. "Half our neighborhoods are already obliterated. It's too late." Lopez said he feared looters would eventually start targeting homes after ransacking businesses. "Once they're done looting and rioting, and whatever's going to happen tonight, God help us. What happens when they start going after residents, going into the neighborhoods, once they start trying to break down people's doors if they think they've got something? We know that people are here to antagonize and incite, and you've got them all pumped tonight. They're not going to go to bed at 8 o'clock. They're going to turn their focus on the neighborhoods. I've got gangbangers with AK-47s walking around right now, just waiting to settle some scores. What are we going to do? And what do we tell residents other than good faith people to stand up? It's not going to be enough." And you know what? He was right, because 18 people died that night. And you know what the response he got from the mayor was? "You're full of S." That's what she said. When Lopez finished talking on the conference call, Lightfoot declined to respond and tried to move on to another alderman. Lopez demanded an answer. "It's not something you ignore. This is a question that I have." That's when the call turned profane. "I think you're 100% full of S, is what I think," Lightfoot said. Lopez was infuriated. "F you. Then who are you to tell me I'm full of S," he said. "Maybe you should come out and see what's going on." Lopez was right. 18 people dead in one of the most deadly and violent days in Chicago history. And that's the response Lori Lightfoot had to the guy who was right, who said gangbangers walking around with AK-47s want to settle some scores. And what did she do about it? Nothing. She just told him basically to F off. Incredible leadership from our politicians, huh? This is why I do not want to be in Chicago. I left Chicago a long time ago. That place is trash. I'm sorry, man. I hate to say it. They got good food, though. If there's one thing Chicago does right, it's food. They got the taste of Chicago. They got some really famous restaurants in the city. It's rather impressive. And it's about the only thing they really do have. The city is corrupt. It is corrupt. It is dangerous. And these are the politicians that we deserve. That's what the city gets. They keep voting for the same people over and over again. False promises and chaos ensues. And they never actually deal with what's going on and why these problems exist. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I know how to solve these problems. I can tell you this. Lori Lightfoot, didn't she go out and get a haircut after she ordered everyone locked down? It's the politicians we deserve, unfortunately. Check this out. The mayor then vehemently denied protecting downtown at the expense of the neighborhoods. "If you think we're not ready and we stood by and let the neighborhoods go up, there's nothing intelligent that I could say to you. That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. I understand you want to preen. Mayor, you need to check your effing attitude. That's what you need to do." At that point, several other aldermen interjected in an effort to calm nerves, with one alderman telling Lopez, "Ray, cut it out, please. Calm down, please." "No, Ray. No. Nah, man, I get it. That was not the appropriate response from the mayor to a dude who said, my people are in danger with people walking around with AK-47s, gangbangers." I'm disgusted by Chicago, man. He did not swear at her. He asked her a legitimate question. What are we going to do? They're locking down downtown. It's going to push people into our neighborhoods. What are you going to do about it? And she said, "You're full of it." I hate Chicago, man. I'm sorry, dude. There's a lot of really great people there. There's a lot of really great businesses there. There's a lot of really great parts of Chicago. I get it. But that city, in my mind, I grew up there, is just, man, I don't even know how to describe it. I have some very, very harsh words to say about that place, but corrupt doesn't even begin to describe the slime that is coated over this city. You know, they operate what's called a black site. The police have basically kidnapped people. I'm not even kidding you. There were protests that happened in 2012. A bunch of activists disappeared for 10 days. Just gone. Yeah. The city is corrupt, man. And I've dealt with it firsthand. And that's why I don't want to go back. And that's how they deal with this. That's what the mayor has to offer to people who are begging for help as they watch their communities destroyed. So don't be surprised if we see Chicago, fizzle out next or whatever. Mass exodus from New York City, from San Francisco. People are leaving the cities, man, especially with COVID and now the rioting. They're getting out of everywhere. I know people who live in Chicago, and Lopez was right about them going to the neighborhoods, but it went beyond what he realized. They went to the suburbs, man. Listen, from downtown to where I grew up was only like maybe 6 or 7 miles. You could walk down the street, and you could make that walk in a couple hours. You could take the train, the Orange Line train, and you could be there within 20, 30 minutes down to the southwest side of the city. You can take the Red Line down to the south side. Yeah, when things locked down in the Loop, people then started going out to the suburbs. But we also heard that people were pushing out to the neighborhoods, but they were also pushing out in the suburbs. And that's when it gets freaky. They can't contain this. The next time this happens, it's going to be worse. And they're talking about defunding the police. If that actually happens, then you know what, man, I have no sympathy for you if you stay in the cities. Now, I do have sympathy for people who can't leave. Not everybody can just up and go. But at a certain point, you have a responsibility to take whatever you can and find whatever you can and just get out in any way possible. I don't know, man. I really don't. But Chicago is a wasteland. I got one more segment coming up for you in a few minutes. Stick around. I'll see you all then.